So, welcome to another edition of the HBCU Sports Podcast. I'm Kendrick Marshall. I'm along here with Chris Stevens. We're going to be doing a show tonight without Ken Rashad, who's with us in spirit. He has a night off, but is somewhere working diligently on behalf of our website. Make sure you follow us on our website, hbcusports.com, Twitter, Facebook. We have a Threads account. So we're everywhere, as you see at the bottom of our screen there. You can many ways to get in contact with us. But tonight, a lot has happened over the last week on and off the field in Black college football. The SWAC West is crazy. The SWAC East has been decided. There's still some spots left up for grabs in the SIAC and the CIAA championship rounds. And we're going to talk all about it tonight. We're first going to start with the SWAC. In Florida A&M, they clinched the SWAC East with a 45-7 win over Prairie View last night. They got help by way of Alabama State beating Alabama A&M in the Magic City Classic, which allowed them to clinch. It's the first ever SWAC championship for FAMU. And surprisingly, it's the first ever SWAC championship as a head coach for Willie Simmons. And so, Chris, we know that FAMU is going to be playing in December in Tallahassee, all in likelihood, host that game. How do you handicap FAMU moving forward after clinching the SWAC East?
For one, I hope that the folks on the highest of the seven hills can exhale a little bit. Because for a while there was a lot of concern about whether Jeremy Musa was the guy, whether their defense could get stops, and is Willie? I mean, people weren't questioning Willie Simmons, his job in jeopardy. Absolutely not. People were like, is Willie Simmons going to have another, collapse? And it's like, okay, this Florida A&M team is probably the best Florida A&M team I've seen since that 99 squad with Billy Joe that went all the way to the what was then the 1AA, but we would call it now the FCS semifinals. So this Florida A&M team, their challenge, their task the next 2 weeks is just to stay motivated. You've got Alabama A&M, and you've got the Florida Classic with Bethune-Cookman, and we know Bethune-Cookman is not going to lay down for Florida A&M by any stretch of the imagination, especially with Ray Woody, a former player, coaching. So Florida A&M at this point right now, you just want your guys to stay healthy. You want your guys to stay focused. Coaches, you want to start preparing for whoever wins the SWAC West, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because we don't know who's going to win the SWAC West at this very moment. But Florida A&M right now, they look really good. I mean, they look like one of the best teams in Black college football, and we'll probably talk about another in a second.
Yeah, so Willie Simmons said this was probably the best, most complete game FAMU has had since the opening game against Jackson State. And I asked Willie Simmons today in a SWAC coaches press conference this morning about whether or not his team would rest on their laurels. Would they still have an edge? How can they keep up their intensity moving forward despite the fact they got still 3 games left in the regular season? We said, winning the SWAC East was a goal, but it was not the goal. And so they have all their sights set on not only just capturing the SWAC championship, they want to win a Celebration Bowl. I asked Willie Simmons before the season started, is this season more important than any other he's been at FAMU? And coach is always going to downplay things like that. He said, no, every season is important, every game is important. But them beating Jackson State in the way they did it, getting over that psychological hurdle after losing to them 2 years in a row meant a lot. And then them struggling during the regular season a little bit, but able to overcome it because they have so much talent and so much depth. And to finally be able to put together a complete game and do it on homecoming and to do it and to win the SWAC East, I think this team right now, despite what happens the rest of the regular season, I think they're going to propel themselves to winning the SWAC title, and we'll see where it goes from there in the Celebration Bowl. But I think right now FAMU is the team to beat in the SWAC, and we're going to talk about another team that possibly could beat them in the SWAC, and that is Alcorn State. They've won 4 straight, and not a lot of people are talking about them. This is like their first real season of having a full schedule. They lost the season due to COVID. Then they got penalized for the way in which they decided to not play football in 2020 and 2021. So they had to play the bulk of their games on the road. Now they're finally able to play a balanced schedule, and you see they're starting to kind of hit their stride at exactly the right time. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you, is Alcorn State the front runner in the SWAC West right now?
To me, yes. And it's clear as day that this team has been waiting for this opportunity to get back on the right foot with all the things that you mentioned about COVID, being penalized for this, that, and the 23rd. And I think what probably will disappoint anyone that isn't an Alcorn fan is that Southern had a chance, Grambling had a chance, even Prairie View had a chance. I mean, Texas Southern, we found out, without Andrew Body, they're not bad, but they're not SWAC West championship material. So you're talking about an Alcorn team that literally has been waiting 3 years to be able to say that, okay, this is Fred McNair has been waiting 3 years to say, okay, this is my team. This is what we do. This is, for me, this is a school that runs in my blood. I quarterbacked here. I coach here. My brother, the late Steve McNair, is probably the greatest athlete this university's ever seen. So this Alcorn State team, they feel like, there's absolutely a chip on their shoulder. And they will definitely have the chance to prove themselves the next couple of weeks because they've got Southern at home, and then they finish up with Texas Southern. And that Texas Southern game is not going to be an easy one, but if they can beat Southern, then I'm pretty sure they can beat Texas Southern. So this game coming up this Saturday for Southern versus Alcorn is, I think it pretty much will decide who wins the SWAC West. And I know I told Ken Rashad in one of our previous episodes that he was going to have to suffer through the stress of maybe the Bayou Classic doing it. That's only if Southern can beat Alcorn State. But if Alcorn State wins, then they're in free and clear, I feel
like. This is the biggest game that's been played on the reservation since the last time these two teams met for the SWAC championship back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
The stakes are just that big. And going into the season, like you didn't know if Alcorn would be in this position. You knew they had a great running game. You knew they had a really good defense, but the question mark was their quarterback situation. And their quarterback has really stepped up throughout the season, giving them Aaron Allen, giving them a lot of great play. I think the game they won a few weeks ago at home against Grambling State, where Aaron Allen had to drive the Braves down the field late in the fourth quarter to win that game, I think that changed everything for them. And I think that win is going to propel them, because they control their own destiny in the SWAC West if they win out, propel them to the division championship, because now you add Aaron Allen's play with their great defense and their solid running game, and I think they become the team to beat on that side of the SWAC. I know Southern's a really good team, but their offense has been up and down throughout the regular season. Last week, despite the fact they beat Texas Southern overtime, their passing game only had 58 yards, which is remarkable. That's something you see if Navy's playing, not a SWAC school that's playing in 2023.
Yeah.
So and with this game being at home for Alcorn State, they have the advantage, and I think they're going to win that game, and I think they're going to put themselves in the driver's seat to win the division.
Yeah, I just don't see when Jared Hoffman, who's usually with us tonight, couldn't be with us tonight. Hopefully he's somewhere in solid area along with Ken. When Jared Hoffman put it in our group chat that Harold Blood had passed for only 21 yards midway through the fourth quarter, definitely raised some eyebrows, because for Eric Dooley offense, 21 yards is one play, and you're making it, and you're getting through a fourth quarter where you have to literally kick a field goal, long field goal, mind you, to even force overtime, and then they get the winning score in overtime. So it's a moot point after that. You win the game. Herman Edwards said it best: you play to win the game, and they won the game. But you have to be concerned if you're Southern, because that offense, as high powered as it was forecasted to be, simply hasn't been. And against a defense like Alcorn's, it could lead to some trouble.
Yeah, when you think about it, Chris, like their offense under Dooley has not been high power since he's got there. Last year, they struggled with Bashawn McCray at quarterback. He had stretches last season, especially toward the end of the season, where he didn't pass over 100 yards in some games. And they played a championship game against State, and he had to be benched and they got a spark from the backup quarterback, but it was too little, too late. I mean, this season, Harold Blood is a grad student. This is his first year starting. He's been up and down. He's had a couple good games. His best game this season was against the Bishop Sycamore Black College football in Lincoln, California. But other than that, like, he hasn't really been consistent. You hear like Southern fans talking about he needs to be benched, needs to be replaced. Yeah. What is Dooley doing with the offense? I mean, like, if Southern's gonna win this SWAC West and they're tied for first place with Alcorn State heading into Saturday, they need a really big game from Harold Blood and not rely so much on their running game and the defense to win, because Alcorn State is too tough at home. They're too tough a team for this to be one-dimensional against them.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and drop the prediction. I feel like Alcorn gets it done. I mean, it's gonna be it's not gonna be easy, but if that Southern offense runs into trouble and you give Aaron Allen a short field, say goodnight. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and pick Alcorn to win this thing and win the West. So we'll have a FAMU Alcorn SWAC championship game, which is probably going to be. People will probably be disappointed that it won't be Southern or Grambling, but the smack talk will still be just as crazy. So we're very much we'll be looking forward to those shenanigans in the late November, early December.
Yeah, the Bible class is going to mean something, but just for bragging rights this year, it looks like. So Cameron don't got to worry.
Yep. Just go there and have a good time.
Yep. Eat some beignets and some gumbo. That's all you got to do is worry about that. So moving on to the other major Black College conference in America is the MEAC. And we saw last Thursday night, North Carolina Central put a tremendous beat down on Buddy Pugh and the Bulldogs from South Carolina State. It was their best game they played probably the last 2 years. They avenged a loss they had to South Carolina State last year. They put a 60 spot on the Bulldogs. Davis Richards, Superman as I call him, he counted for 7 touchdowns in the game. And North Carolina Central, they proved that, hey, like, they're the best team, not only in the MEAC, but one of the best teams in the FCS too. So Chris, is there anybody out there in MEAC land who could possibly knock them off their perch?
Before I answer that question, I had a chance to talk to Coach Oliver in the MEAC coaches conference this morning. I asked him straight up, y'all scratched out 16 points against Morgan State. Next week, you dropped 62 on Buddy Pugh, which I don't think if it's happened, it's been a rarity. And Coach Oliver said that, it was pretty much his guys having a little more extra time to prepare than Coach Pugh, of course, because South Carolina State played Delaware State on a Saturday. And, of course, they had to go to Durham on a Thursday. But one thing I like about that Central team is that they don't have to rely just on Davis Richard, and they didn't have Latrell Collier for much of that game. He went out early with the injury. Coach Oliver said he's day-to-day for the record, but I feel like, Coach Oliver also said if he feels like Latrell is, well, they call him Mookie. So if Mookie feels like he can go, then he's going to go. They'll be playing Norfolk State for homecoming. So to answer the question, the only challenge I honestly see coming from them for Central going forward is Howard. I had a chance to see Howard play at Delaware State on Saturday, and Howard's defense is a little bit slept on. They've got some beef up front. They have great defensive backs, Kenny Gallup, Ray Williams, Clayton Perrin. Those guys patrol the secondary with fearlessness. And, of course, on offense, Quentin Williams has any variety of weapons. Just Saturday just happened to be Jared Hunter. Jared Hunter took control on a drive where he accounted for about half of their 92 yards that ended up going for the winning touchdown. So if you feel like you can key on Hunter, then there's Eden James. If there's Eden James that you want to key on, then there's Casey Hawthorne running all over the field. And Williams can tuck it and run himself. But if you leave him time to throw, he can find any one of those guys. So this Howard team is probably going to have the best shot. And it's November 11th. So it's literally less than 2 weeks away. They've got less than 2 weeks, before Central rolls into Green Stadium. And that should be a great game. Do I think that they can do it? Possibly, but I feel like this Central team is just far beyond anyone in Black college football. And yes, I am including Florida A&M in that. I feel like Central, if they were to go to the FCS playoffs, they would at least make it to the quarterfinals and probably the semifinals. So Howard is their best chance. Howard is the best chance anyone has to knock off Central in the MEAC this year.
Yeah, it looks like that way. That game is going to be at Howard, as Chris mentioned, on November 11th, 3:30 kickoff. That game may be elevated by ESPN. We don't know, but it definitely will be a spotlight game that day. And I agree with you, Chris. It's going to be hard to beat North Carolina Central. Me personally, like I think that game against Morgan State kind of woke them up a little bit to say, hey, like we got to bring it to win the MEAC, and they definitely brought it last Thursday night. And I think they got something to prove. I think they got something to prove to everybody. Like, hey, like last year wasn't a fluke. Like we're far and away the best team in the MEAC, and no team has repeated in the MEAC since they go into the 16 format. So North Carolina Central trying to do that. They're a top 10 team in the country, and I think come November 11th, they're going to show Howard again, who they beat by 50 points last year, that they are still their daddies. And so I just think like North Carolina Central, they got way too much talent. They're way too much motivated. And Trey Oliver won't them guys take any playoff, any weeks off. So it's going to be really tough for Howard to try to win that game, despite the fact they are still an evolving team. The team is still growing. A team that's taken after that disastrous loss against Hampton, they took a jump and won their last two games. So I think like maybe next year for Howard, but not this year.
Yeah, it's Central's world, and everyone else is living it. I mean, I've said it before on Twitter, and I'll say it on this show. If Davius Richards is not in someone's NFL camp next spring and summer, then there's something wrong with the evaluation process. You can't tell me that a young man, 6'3", 220, 230 pounds, with an arm that can, make sound decisions and can tuck and run. I mean, I've said it. He's even down to the number. He's Dante Culpepper. Down to the number 11. He's Dante Culpepper. And, when you have a young man of that talent and capability, you got to find a spot for him in your quarterback room if you're an NFL team. Because if you made me say that there are 60 quarterbacks in this country better than Davius Richard, I will call you a liar. Because there aren't. There aren't. He's a tremendous talent. He's overseen the best team in Black college football the last 2 years, and it hasn't even been close. So yeah, I feel like Davius Richard is a young man that we really need to be talking about, trumping him up so people can see that, hey, it's not just that he's playing against Black college talent, because he's giving the business to not Colonial, doggone. I keep calling it the Colonial, Coastal. He's giving Coastal teams the business. Campbell and Elon are not like, bottom feeders in that conference. So, and he's given those teams fits. So we really need to be, talking about how good Davius Richard is and that he deserves a shot at the NFL, because he's absolutely NFL worthy.
He definitely does. Like watching him play last year in the Celebration Bowl, like real close for the first time. Like he's a really big guy. I mean, like 6'3", 25 pounds, 230 pounds. He, with his legs, wore Jackson State down. And Jackson State had one of the best defensive lines in the country last year. And they had a hard time tackling that guy. And so him playing it in the MEAC and being prepared to do that by the physical nature of the style of play in that conference, I mean, only set him up for success. And so, like, him doing it with his arm is, like, really important, too, because, like, he was known as a runner at first, but being able to, like, throw the ball and beat teams with his arm, you combine that with his legs and make him a total package, a dangerous quarterback.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just feel like, he'll probably be one of the ones that we look back on in a few years, whether he's a reliable backup or a starter in the NFL, and we'll just say, yo, we knew it. We knew it. We knew he was good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's going to be the favorite to win the Black College Player of the Year. He's possibly going to get some consideration for All-American, definitely maybe the Combine, Senior Bowl invite. So the sky's the limit for that kid, I think.
Absolutely.
Transitioning now to Division II, Benedict, they won again. What's new? they improved to 9-0 in the season, still undefeated in the SIAC, on their way once again to another title game appearance. And we know it's Benedict on one side. Chris, who's going to be on the other side?
Well, that is what the old folks used to call the $64,000 question, because now we have some shenanigans in that top tier, because we thought that Miles was going to be in good shape to get that rematch with Benedict. Because Benedict had to sweat out a 27-23 win in Miles a couple of weeks ago. So you feel like, okay, Miles is going to, finish the season strong, finish second place. They'll have another chance. Funny thing happened on the way to Atlanta. Albany happened. Albany State beat them 45-7. When I looked at that score, because I got back from Dover, and I immediately when I got back home and opened up my laptop, I went to the SIAC scoreboard. I said, okay, let me see how this game looks. I figure it's close, and then it's like, hold on, wait a minute, hold on here, wait. It's not close. What's happening? What's going on here? So
something right, something wrong, yeah.
Something's wrong. I mean, I already told you guys in the chat I need to go see my eye doctor. So I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at the correct score, and apparently it's the correct score. So now you've got an interesting situation because Fort Valley is still only one loss in conference because the Red Tails Classic didn't count as a conference game. Tuskegee still only has one loss. Allen, is only a 2-loss team. If they somehow beat Benedict and I think either Fort Valley or Tuskegee loses, then it's okay. Now you've got to talk about a tiebreaker between Miles and Allen. And if it's a head-to-head, then of course it will go to Miles. But if it's not a head-to-head, then you start counting all these scenarios about points against, points versus, points for, yards, common opponents, whatever. So it's very much a fluid situation. But we know one thing's for sure is that Benedict is going to be there. And the team that ends up, getting that bid, they better be ready because Benedict sure is.
Yeah, like if you want to like handicap it, like as you mentioned before, just taking a look at the standings, like Tuskegee's there, Fort Valley's there, Allen is there. I don't know, Chris. It's definitely like you're like trying really hard to try to handicap it and determine like which of these group of schools could possibly get that last spot. It's kind of hard because there are really good teams, and look at Tuskegee for an example. They have Miles left, and they could beat Miles, but also Miles could beat them because Miles hung in tough with Benedict a few weeks ago, and then Tuskegee, they play Alabama State to end the season. So it's going to be tough to try to find out who's going to take that last spot. But for me, in my money, I'm a surprise some people, and I'm gonna say Fort Valley State is going to play Benedict. I just think if they can get by Albany State, which I think they will, I think they'll get their second spot and end up playing Benedict for the championship. But it's real tough though. It's going to be real tough to decide. It's going to come out to the last weekend of the season is probably not surprising at all. It's going to. So it's definitely going to be a fun battle to watch for sure.
Yeah, and credit goes to the SIAC leadership for hedging their bets by canceling divisions because I went back and did some research and I didn't realize that the division format was only 5 years old because before that there was always a one SIAC division. So they said, okay, now that we have 13 very solid football schools. Well, solid is relative if you're Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, well, God bless them. But if you are relative to that, you've got 13 solid football programs, and it's a week-to-week situation in that league. That's what you want. And as I talked to Sean Gibbs at the beginning of the season, Fort Valley's head coach, he said, it's up to us to prove to the country that we are a worthy conference. And so far, the SIAC has done it. You're probably going to have at least more than half of the teams in that conference finish above 500. You're going to have, you've got Allen with his first winning season since, I think it was 1963 or something like that. And Edward Waters, if they can beat Virginia Lynchburg, and surprisingly, that is not a gimme game anymore. Shouts out to the Dragons. But if they can beat the Dragons, it'll be their first winning season since they restarted football in 2005. And then, of course, you've got Albany State still very much in the chase. You've got Fort Valley, who's 7-2. Tuskegee, who is 8-1, yeah. And it's nice to be able to hang your hat on that. Okay, we are as good as we say we are, and you guys have to take a look at us. So, yeah, I think I'm with you. I feel like Fort Valley beats Albany, and the Miles Tuskegee game just doesn't have any, pull because Fort Valley would be the only team with a single loss in conference. So yeah, that's probably going to be a painful thing for Tuskegee because um, they beat Fort Valley in the Red Tails, of course, but the Red Tails apparently didn't count as a conference championship game. So I'd be very upset if I was Aaron James to find out that, we beat Fort Valley, but we couldn't get in the championship game because we lost to Edward Waters. That will be a sore spot for that team for a long time to come.
Yeah, you never know. Like one slip up, especially when you're playing a conference that doesn't have divisions, could cost you in the end. It certainly may cost them in the end, depending on what happens this weekend. But let me ask you this, Chris. Like you mentioned, the SIAC doesn't have divisions. The MEAC doesn't have divisions either. Do you think that's better to determine like the two best teams in the league, or is the division format the way to go?
Well, the MEAC, you're not going to have 3 teams in the North and 3 teams in the South. So I think the MEAC is fine until, granted, if Hampton and A&T come back, then yeah, you could probably split up 4-4 and live with it that way. But I feel like the SIAC this year, it worked out for them. It's going to work out for them. But yeah, if you're a Tuskegee fan, you probably won't feel that way. But I feel like the SIAC, is doing it right because you want to be able to say, okay, our best 2 teams are the ones that are playing in Atlanta on November 25th, whenever the SIAC championship game is. You want to be able to say that. You're going to have that already with Benedict. That's number 1. Whoever out of Fort Valley, Tuskegee, or Miles gets there, they will be a worthy number 2 as well. So you've got to just, tip your hat to that leadership once again for saying, okay, the East and West thing was fine, but, we want to spice things up a little bit. And boy, has the SIAC season been spicy.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like this is probably like the most competitive it's been in a while. And not just at the top, but like throughout the entire conference, like you mentioned, like Edward Waters, and then they coming up strong, and they'll be a team to reckon with in the future. So like me personally, like I think like the 2 best teams inside of a non-divisional format is the best way to go because like every single game really matters. Like you're not taking advantage of like playing the weak division year maybe for a little bit, or like, or maybe in some years like one division may be stronger than the other one, and like the strong division kind of gets penalized for being strong, and so they can't have like the best teams from that side represented. It's got to be the from the east or the west, however they formulate it. So I think a single conference format with the 2 best teams should be the way to go from now on. Just way more competitive that way from jump.
Absolutely. When you're going to look back on this year, there's going to be at least 6 or 7 teams outside of Benedict. Well, yeah, 6 or 7 because Kentucky State hasn't been bad. Lane hasn't been bad. They've just fallen, on hard times because, they're young teams trying to rebuild their programs. But, there'll be at least 6 or 7 teams that feel like, okay, we had a chance at Benedict. We had a chance at Fort Valley. We had a chance at Tuskegee. We had a chance at Miles. And, we just got to regroup and come back next year. So iron sharpens iron. And I feel like and we've said it all year. Jared said it all year, and I've echoed his sentiment. The SIAC is the best pound for pound Black college conference in football this season.
And that's not an exaggeration. Like we've actually like looked into it, followed these games really closely, and just overall play, competitiveness, performances of the teams from top to bottom, they have been the best league of all the major Black college football conferences this year. And it might be that way for a while. I mean, like people are going to say the SWAC East because of the depth in its teams, the story nature of its teams. But for this season, it's been the SIAC, and for good reason. As we know, like a lot of good teams can play for the championship, but they can't because that's how tough the league is.
Yeah.
So moving on to the other Division II league, the CIAA, Fayetteville State, they took the spot in the championship game for the conference this past weekend. But you asked the question in the chat, like, did their chances to win the CIA improve? Why are you asking this? And like, did their chances improve?
I asked because I feel like granted, yes, they still have offensive struggles, but they have one of the top defenses in the country. Like they literally have shut down. Their two losses were to, Division II to contenders, UNC Pembroke and Wingate. So it's like, okay, you still have ways to go to compete with those teams, but you come back to your league, you should be able to dominate. And granted, winning 7-0 against St. Augustine's and winning 19-14 or whatever it was against Livingstone doesn't really make you a dominant team, but it makes you a team that wins when you have to. And again, you play to win the game. And right now, they stand a really good shot of running the table because their last contender was Winston-Salem State, and they fell to Johnson C. Smith. And apparently that was the first time Johnson C. Smith beat Winston-Salem State in 27 years. Again, this has just been like the weirdest black college football season. And this past weekend, it was Halloween for a reason. Whole lot of tricks and not a lot of treats for the losing teams. So, you really find that this time of year is when teams, they get that gut check. They figure out, okay, maybe we can't compete for a championship, but we can spoil somebody else's fun. And that's pretty much what week 9 was for black college football. So, yes, Virginia Union and Virginia State are probably the class of the CIAA. Last week combined, they scored 132 points. It literally. When I saw the Virginia State Lincoln score, and I've been rooting for Lincoln to have a winning season. They won't do it this year because they're 4-5 now. The best they can do is finish 5-5, but they beat Bowie this weekend. This would have been Lincoln's first winning season since 1956. When I got back to the house, it was 61-19. I said, well, looks like that 56 Lincoln team is going to pop the champagne another year. And when I saw 75-25, I used the old Titus O'Neil WrestleMania meme. Call the police, please. These are dominant offenses that have top flight running backs. There's Kemo Clark at Virginia State. There's Jada Byers at Virginia Union. So this Virginia rivalry game, is going to be probably one for all time. We already know that these two are looking forward to the SIAC championship game because they feel like they have a good shot to beat Fayetteville and surprise some teams in the Division II tournament, even though they probably will be in the same region as the SIAC winner, which stinks. But, it feels like Fayetteville State, if they can rely on their defense and find some semblance of a consistent offense. I'm not saying they don't have an offense. I'm just saying it's very inconsistent. But if they can find a semblance of consistent offense, then they can make life tough for Virginia State or Virginia Union in the CIAA championship game.
Yeah, Chris, I'm gonna have to go against you on this one, man. Like, I'm looking at Virginia State and I'm looking at Virginia Union, and I'm like, okay, Fayetteville State's undefeated on their side, but like they're winning by the skin of their teeth and by the hair of their chinny chin chins. And so like they're a good team, man. But like when you think about Virginia Union, they got Jada Byers, who's the best running back in the country for the D2 level, arguably. Then you got Virginia State, their offense, and the way they can put points on the board. Like Fayetteville State hadn't been consistent enough. They've been good enough to win, but not consistent enough, I think, to overtake either Virginia Union or Virginia State. So while I think they are worthy to be in the discussion of CIAA champ, this will be their 6th time in the championship game, I think, once again, they're going to be a little bit short on the offensive side of the football to actually win it this year. But, if they win, it won't surprise me at all. They're a great team in their own right. But I think you have to bring a little bit more to the table when you're talking about Virginia Union and Virginia State team that you're playing against.
Yeah, literally either Virginia State or Virginia Union could go to a PSAC school or is it Conference Carolinas down there? The other D2, whatever it is.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
South Atlantic, Carolinas Conference, whatever it is. They can go to either one of those conferences and make life miserable in the first round for an opponent. So Fayetteville State really is going to have to bring their A+++ game to Salem on November 11th. November 11th. So, they'll have to figure it out. But, I'm just, hoping that they show up and make it a good game. But yeah, it's likely that whoever wins the Virginia State Virginia Union game is going to win the CIAA.
Yeah. So the larger picture for D2, like any schools not named Benedict, you think have a really good chance of making the Division II playoffs?
It's unfortunate because we saw the early not the selection committee stuff that is obviously going to go out, but the seedings and the rankings in each super region. And Fayetteville State was the only CIAA school that was mentioned. But if they don't win the conference, then they're not going to go. And then that means that whoever wins between Virginia State and Virginia Union is probably going to be like the last seed in. So and if Benedict finishes 11-0, it's very plausible that first round matchup could be the CIAA winner against Benedict. And we've complained ad nauseum about, HBCUs always being pitted against each other in these playoff situations, and especially at the Division II level. So if it happens again, then we really have to start, discussing why this happens and how maybe to better schedule, non-conference opponents and get those wins, as Sean Gibbs at Fort Valley said, so they can stop pitting us against each other. Because that looks like that's going to be the thing, even though Virginia Union and Virginia State appear to be better teams than Fayetteville State.
Yeah, I mean, like, it seems like it's similar to like on the basketball side, the tournament where like the playing game and now the first four always got to have those two black college schools in there, either playing against each other or either they're playing a seed, and if they win that game, they got to play number one seed overall in the tournament, which is unfair, obviously. So like it seems like the black college schools, whether in football or basketball, aren't really being judged by their own merit, but just stereotypical of like the conferences they in and kind of not based on the way they play. And so I'm hoping, overall, hope that like the committee, it makes it fair and sees these teams the way they should be based on their resume and not because of what conference they're in.
Right. It's gonna take some work. I mean, I've already got a hot take lined up about how black colleges and HBCU sports in general are always, fighting for something that should be ours all the time. But we'll find a way. I mean, our schools have always found a way to, make things relevant, make things pop, and make people want to, follow in our footsteps. And I think football is no different, especially at the Division II level. I feel like we're at a, much better state in Division II than we are in Division I.
Yeah, that's a really great segue, Chris, because we're going to get into our hot takes for the week. And you wrote a column last week giving a perspective on the whole Hampton, University of Delaware situation, where Delaware's bigwigs, they kind of try to use Hampton as a way to justify them leaving the CAA to pursue their FBS dreams. And you spoke to, and you kind of spoke to that, and like how it's another situation of what Black people has faced a lot of times, and like our situations not being respected and taken advantage of for the aims of whites and their interests. So going into a little bit of your column as well as your hot take based on that particular issue.
Okay, so if you missed it, Kevin Tresolini is the University of Delaware beat writer for the Delaware News Journal, which is the flagship paper here in my home state of Wilmington, Delaware. And there was a story that he wrote about the Hampton UD game, which of course didn't go in Hampton's favor. I mean, everybody expected that was going to happen, unfortunately. But Tresolini mentioned that, there was only a crowd of 3,686 and that, UD was going up against what he called quote unquote non-notables in Hampton, Campbell, and soon to be joining the conference, Bryant, which is up in Rhode Island. Then he finished with the sentence, "There goes the neighborhood." If you're a Black person of a certain age, you understand the implications behind "there goes the neighborhood." There goes the neighborhood goes back generations. We're talking about the assassination of Martin Luther King in April of 1968 and the riots that took place after that in a lot of urban cities. And white people got out of town. They broke out fast. It was called white flight when they started going to suburban areas to create their own communities and, be free from the Black menace, if you will. So when Black people became upwardly mobile near the tail end of the 70s and the beginning of the 1980s, and those folks started filtering out of their cities and into those suburban areas, white people would generally say, "There goes the neighborhood." Now, Hampton, of course, and North Carolina A&T are HBCUs, as we all know, very proud of those schools. And they joined the Colonial, I keep calling it the Colonial, I'm sorry, the Coastal Athletic Association. And when you have a Black college joining a predominantly white conference and a reporter says, there goes the neighborhood. Yes, we are well within our rights to be upset about that. We're well within our rights to question, the motive behind it. I've already mentioned in my piece, if you haven't seen it, you can go to hbcusports.com and check that out. It's called Hampton, Delaware Drama is Proof That we need to pay attention to our Black college neighborhoods. So you can go check that out whenever you get a chance. And I mentioned that HBC, and I got an interesting email once the column, started bubbling a little bit, and it was from Kevin Tresolini, because we are both members of the Delaware Sports Writers and Broadcasters Association. And Trez, to his credit, he took on responsibility for saying that if it was offensive, he didn't mean anything by it, and that there goes the neighborhood was just a turn of phrase that's been used for a long time. Yes, it's been used for a long time, but I also explained in my return email to him that Black people, we're sensitive about things that feel like slights. In Black college, and HBCU, the HBCU community, we're very protective of ourselves. Yes, we talk a gang of trash about our own, but that's how family is. That's how Black families are. We can say something about us, but you better not say nothing about us. That's how it works. And I told Trez in my email that Black colleges and HBCU sports, forget fighting for a slice of the pie. We're still fighting for crumbs. And granted, maybe that turn of phrase was not something that he meant any harm by, but it's to Black folks of a certain generation, and those of us who were raised and mentored by Black folks of that certain generation, it absolutely is offensive. And we're well within our rights to call him out and call anyone out who chooses to use incendiary language like that. So I just want people to understand that their ice isn't always colder, their grass isn't always greener. And for everyone who's saying that, wow, Hampton and A&T should have made the right choice of going to the Colonial, and that Tennessee State is right to stay within the OVC and the Big South, I don't think so, because they've shown us PWIs, NCAA, the legislators who woefully underfund us to the tunes of billions and trillions and millions of dollars at this point, they don't give a you-know-what about us. So we need to give a you-know-what about ourselves. Like, we can go into their neighborhoods, but we can't get the same experience that we have if we take care of our neighborhoods, if we take care of our HBCU conferences, if we take care of our campuses, if we keep our culture, not, sell it to the highest bidder, not have a football coach go from Jackson, Mississippi to Boulder, Colorado, and try to take a culture there that does not exist to those people. And I find also, before I go on, I find it interesting that there were some items that were taken from a Boulder, Colorado locker room, and it wasn't made a big hullabaloo as locker room items that were allegedly taken from Jackson, Mississippi, but were never found to be taken in the first place. Just want to throw that out there. But again, in closing, Black colleges, we are all we got. We cannot rely on PWIs to do the right thing. We cannot rely on the NCAA to do the right thing. We for doggone sure can't rely on legislators to do the right thing. We have to take care of our own houses. We have to sweep around our own front doors. We have to water our own gardens. We have to take care of ourselves and build ourselves up. And if we can do that, then we'll be able to make some inroads. But if we keep trying to run off to the first PWI conference that offers us, then we're going to have more people in the media, more people in positions of power saying, there goes the neighborhood. Do we really want to be in their neighborhoods if they don't want us there in the first place? We shouldn't.
That's an excellent take, Chris.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, you really put it in perspective. I know we've talked the last couple of weeks about a situation with Tennessee State and their attendance and kind of their football attendance, and kind of like how fans don't really feel connected to watch the games because of the teams they're playing. We talked about this with North Carolina A&T, who their former players have said similar things about they want that Black college experience. And so all this is kind of like encapsulated and related into the same topic. So I'm glad you had those words about that. My hot take for the week probably not going to be as important as poignant. Bear with me with my voice. I'm trying to get over a cold right now, so I sound so hoarse. So my take is probably going to be pretty short. But my hot take for the week is a story that's not unfamiliar to Black college football fans if you've been paying attention the last couple of weeks. But I think it's something that or really should be highlighted continuously because of its groundbreaking nature. And that is the story of the young woman, Leilani Armenta. Hope I'm saying her name right. Leilani Armenta. She is the place kicker for Jackson State. This past weekend against Arkansas Pine Bluff, she became the first woman in Division I Black college football history to score a point in the game. She made three extra points in Jackson State's 40-14 win over Pine Bluff on Saturday. And today she was named by the SWAC as SWAC Player of the Week. It was a very deserving honor for her as being the first ever female football player in not only the SWAC, but in Division I Black college football, and for JSU too. But the thing that really kind of bothered me about everything surrounding this particular issue is like so many people who just made so many very inappropriate comments about her, about the motivation for her being on the team, about just her in general. I mean, people are saying it's a publicity stunt. People are saying like she don't deserve the recognition. She don't deserve to be SWAC Player of the Week. Though you could argue the kicker for Southern this week, who made a 54-yard field goal to tie the game against Texas Southern, in any other week will probably win Special Teams Player of the Week, or even be SWAC Special Teams Player of the Week. And it was a wonderful feat by him, but he happened to do it on a weekend where something happened in the conference that has never happened in the history of the conference. With Leilani's achievement. And to me, like, it's disturbing that so many people don't support her. She's coming off an ACL injury, 10 months removed from surgery. T.C. Taylor, the football coach, because the football team has suffered so many injuries to their special teamers, their kickers in particular, he contacted the soccer coach for the women's team and asked, like, do you have anybody on your team who can help us out for a few weeks? And the soccer coach, he brought up Leilani's name, and she was ready and willing to help out, despite the fact she was recovering from surgery. She's wearing a big brace on her right leg, but she's willing to sacrifice for her school. She's willing to jump in at a moment's notice and just play a part to help the team win in any way they could. And so she is the epitome of what being a student athlete is all about. She is the epitome of what being a football player is all about. Willing to sacrifice your body, willing to give your time, willing to be thrust in there, and just to give of yourself at a moment's notice. She did that. She should be commended for that. T.C. Taylor today talked about her future in the football team. He mentioned that she has a spot on the football team, and more importantly, that she's a part of the football team. I've seen videos of her kicking in practice. Her teammates support her greatly. They consider her a part of the team. They want her to be around. They support her in everything she does because it's not easy what she do. A lot of people made the comment, well, like any guy on campus could have done that. No, they couldn't. If you don't know anything about college football, kickers are not very good. And not every kicker, male, American, born, red-blooded football player can make an extra point, even without a torn ligament in her knee like she has. And she did it 3 times with the knee brace on her knee. So she's stronger than a lot of guys out there. So she deserves like all the respect, all the recognition you could possibly bestow on her. That award was not given to her today by the SWAC because of trying to pander to any group or try to do any publicity stuff. No, she earned it. She wouldn't be on the football team if she couldn't play. She would be out there if the coaches didn't believe she could contribute to the team in any other way. And so what she did was remarkable. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the other young woman, Shaw University kicker in India Polis. Pofis. Thanks, Chris. And India Pofis. She kicks for Shaw. She became the first woman earlier this season to score a point in the Division II Black college football game. And her story is similar to Leilani's, where she kicked in high school for her team. She was a very accomplished kicker there, and her teammates at Shaw vouched for her to kick and be on the team, and she did a great job in her own right. So I know a lot of people out there may be a little bit insecure about having a woman football player out there, but these women are on the field without merit or without skill. They have done a great service for the universities and for the football team. So to Leilani, it's in India. Thank you for your work that you do. Thank you for inspiring so many young Black women out there to be able to dream one day they can be just like you. Because I know um, your efforts have not gone unnoticed by young women across college sports and across youth sports too. So thanks again for your efforts, and thanks again for doing what you do for your schools. Um,
That was pointing as all get out. I mean, yeah, I mean, you said yours wasn't, but I mean, I have a theory and I have an opinion about people downplaying women in sports, but that's a different episode for another time. We'll have to discuss that a different way. But that was pretty doggone good, Kendrick.
yeah, I mean, there's something to be said. Like I know, like a lot of people feel like women don't have a place in male sports, not only on the field but even off the field. Like even in media covering sports, even talking about it on television or on radio or writing about it. They don't need to be in locker rooms. Like women are just as big as part of sports as men are, and they're just important part of sports as men are too. And they deserve a place in our sports as well. So congrats to them, and hopefully there'll be more women who will be able to contribute to any facet they can in football and the other sports that are made available. And enough of my hoarse voice. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendrick Marshall. I was joined by Chris Stevens. Follow our work on our website. You see it scroll across the bottom of the screen there. Um, be sure to follow us on social media, on Twitter X, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great evening, folks. Peace.